I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USA Watchdog.com. With us, one of the top doctors, cardiologist, internist. He's just started a brand new company that will basically cater to a lot of the people that are vax injured. People are going to doctors. They're saying, we don't know what's going on. Or they yell at their patients and tell them it's not the vaccines. There's a whole lot of things going on. It's Dr. Peter McCullough, a brand new guest. I'm very happy to have him on. Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.com.
Thanks for having me.
You are, this is no small thing. A lot of doctors kept quiet and, like the guards at Dachau, it's just my job. Not you. You took a lot of grief for it, along with a lot of other, Ryan Cole, Dr. Pierre Corey, Penny, I can name off about a dozen. There should be, there should be thousands of doctors sticking their necks out, but you're one of them at the very beginning. You were one of the first doctors to say, hey, here's how you treat COVID without going to the hospital. Tell me about that paper that's still in existence.
It's true. I was the first to publish the paper titled The Pathophysiologic Rationale for the Early Treatment of COVID-19. It appeared in the American Journal of Medicine, August 7th, 2020 issue. Still the most frequently downloaded paper now for over 2 years from that journal. And there's a reason why. There was a tremendous unmet need. People wanted to be treated for COVID-19 at home to prevent hospitalization and death. People thought, listen, it wouldn't be too bad to get COVID as long as they're not hospitalized or worse. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons by October of 2020 had a full treatment guide. The Great Barrington Declaration, published by Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford, had a declaration that said we should just protect our seniors. We should not lock down. And, I can tell you, if the Great Barrington Declaration was followed, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons was followed, we wouldn't be in this disaster that we are now today. With our public health response, we've had over 1 million Americans lose their life, either directly due to COVID or with COVID. And then we've had 10 million hospitalizations. The vast majority of all those were unnecessary. We should have always treated the illness early. The first 3 days are the key window of treatment. I have 57 peer-reviewed publications on COVID-19. I had a whole series I published by invitation in the Hill the first year. Now a podcast this year, America Out Loud Talk Radio, McCullough Report. I've done everything possible to message to the country to get treatment for COVID-19 and not end up as another statistic.
Let's talk about the vaccine injuries. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. The people dropping over dead, and people. I see people all the time. I get 500 emails a week, and people that comment, or I see them and they say, "Oh, I have a heart flutter and I've had my third booster," and the doctor says I'm crazy, or they just start. One doctor was actually screaming at a patient. It has nothing to do with the COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccines are awful and they're killing people and making them sick, are they not? And how bad is this? How bad is it going to get?
It's true. I published in August of 2020, before the vaccines came out, I published an op-ed in the Hill. You still can find it. It's called The Great Gamble of the COVID-19 Vaccine Program. It was a gamble of a lifetime, if not a gamble of all time. The vaccines install the genetic code for the lethal Wuhan spike protein that was engineered in a biosecurity lab in Wuhan, China. This is the worst idea ever, to install the genetic code for a fatal protein and have it be produced for an uncontrolled duration and an uncontrolled quantity in the human body. Of course, some people can't tolerate it. And what we know now is in our US CDC VAERS system, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, the CDC is certifying over 14,000 Americans have died, sadly, on the day they take the shot or the next day. And that is a gross underreporting. The numbers could be 100-fold higher. This is a biological catastrophe of unspeakable proportions. And nobody wants these vaccines. For the last year or so, they've been forced into taking it, and they're forced to either lose their job or lose their life. World Council for Health on June 11th, 2022, had a global recall. After several stern warnings, they told every government agency, take them off the market. They're not safe.
This is, and we're only talking about the people you mentioned that just died the day after, died actually from the absolute injection. But then we have all the accelerated cancers. Dr. Ryan Cole talked about this. Other doctors have talked about this. Autoimmune disease. I mean, Justin Bieber just canceled his concert tour and left Brazil because he's got extreme shingles. His wife has had, a stroke at 25. Oh, common for young people. This is just there's all kinds of knock-on effects. Are they not?
It's true. Besides the U.S. over 14,000 deaths, there are hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations and clinic visits for the syndromes you mentioned. Let's just take the things the FDA agrees the vaccines cause. The FDA agrees the vaccines cause heart damage, myocarditis. There was a recent paper by Patone and colleagues in Circulation. 100 cases of fatal myocarditis certified in the UK. In the United States, fatal cases published by Gill and by Verma from Washington University in St. Louis, by Choi in Korea. The FDA agrees to this. The FDA agrees the vaccines cause fatal heart damage. The FDA agrees the vaccines cause fatal blood disorders like blood clotting and vaccine-induced thrombocytopenic purpura. The FDA agrees the vaccines cause potentially fatal neurologic injury, Guillain-Barré syndrome. This is what the FDA agrees to. All of these warnings should be carefully followed. Anybody taking one of these vaccines and they want to avoid this complication, they really need to decline them. The sad thing is people feel forced into it. They feel as if they're going to lose their job or get kicked out of the military or the school. So they play this Russian roulette with the COVID-19 vaccines, and sadly, some people, their number gets called. What's interesting is we find that the majority of these deaths and injuries are in restricted lots of product. It's not randomly distributed across the population. We know that it's a problem with the vaccine products because it occurs in certain lots. And this has been revealed in work by Sasha Latipova and Trial Site News, and the data are published. Flu vaccine injuries are very rare, and they're randomly distributed across everybody. Here, these COVID-19 vaccine injuries are very common, and they're restricted to specific lots, what we call hot lots. And there's probably very good messenger RNA, well preserved, well cooled, and it's the good stuff that is resulting in a loss of life. It's degraded messenger RNA, degraded lipid nanoparticles, bad manufacturing and processing and material handling that basically leads to a dud. We know this. A recent Zogby survey shows 85% of people who take the vaccines are perfectly fine. Nothing happens. They probably are getting degraded messenger RNA, and 15% end up with some new disease or problem. They're the ones getting the hot stuff.
Dr. Surjit Bhakdi has been on, I think it's the way you say his name, Dr. Bhakdi. He says even without the mRNA, that the nanolipid particle injection will shorten your life, period. What do you say to that? I mean, this is poison. This is graphene, right? When they told us from the beginning, it wasn't, they lied about everything. But this is, but Bhakdi says you get injected with this nanolipid particle injection, which is super strong. You've shortened your life. What say you?
Well, lipid nanoparticles are the common feature of both the messenger RNA and the adenoviral DNA vaccines. We've never had a vaccine loaded on a lipid nanoparticle, which travels everywhere in the body. The lipid part of this is key. It means it easily gets into the brain, the spinal cord, the reproductive organs, the adrenal glands. This is bad news. You don't want a vaccine traveling into the brain, but we know the lipid nanoparticle goes there. It definitely goes to the heart. Autopsy paper from Bohmeyer and colleagues, necropsy, biopsy studies, clearly shows the spike protein in the heart. Autopsy studies from Germany and Austria show the spike protein in the brain after vaccination. And the Chinese knew this. Paper by Wang and colleagues showed that the lipid nanoparticles themselves would get into these organs. This has been known. And now in my Twitter feed today, a paper from Thomas Jefferson University by Quinn and colleagues showing that the lipid nanoparticles themselves knock down the immune system, and it may be a mechanism by which this is actually heritable to offspring in animals. This is disturbing. People who take the vaccines are not the same, and young people who may be, having children in the future may pass down some of this weakened immunity to their children. That's what the paper from Thomas Jefferson suggests today. It's really bad news.
I mean, there is a lot of delayed reaction. I mean, the drummer for the Foo Fighters felt great until about 14 months after his last shot. I mean, I'm sorry he had a heart attack, and I know you're an expert. You're a cardiologist and the top one in the country, if not the world. I mean, there could be some pretty severe delayed reactions, can there not, doctor?
It's true. In my clinical practice, I've seen near fatal blood clots as late as 5 months after taking one of these injections. We know the myocarditis, if it causes damage early and it's not recognized, could lead to sudden death or heart failure months or years later. And the FDA agrees the vaccines cause myocarditis. With all of these deaths that are reported, we have to know if they've taken the vaccine or not. And so this is a call to the family members and survivors. Please let us know if they've taken the vaccine or not. If someone's not taking the vaccine, we don't have to implicate it. But right now, so many people are dying without any explanation. The assumption is they may have taken the vaccine. Maybe that's the reason why people are quiet. They feel embarrassed. They feel remorseful. They may feel some other duty or obligation to what we call the biopharmaceutical complex. But the families ought to come clean on these deaths. And I think the fact that we have so many deaths, but there's no mention of what the cause, is making people very uneasy.
Last week there was a report in Breitbart, and they said, pretty well done, said that 58% of Americans have had 2 shots in a booster. We've had 599 million injections of this crap, and that's what it is. Because if they did what you said to do, we wouldn't have needed it, which was, ivermectin and all the other treatments, hydroxychloroquine. But if you've gotten 3 shots in a booster, aren't you treading on thin ice? I mean, this is a disaster, is it not?
I think it is, because we have a paper from Stanford by Rolkin and colleagues showing the messenger RNA gets stuck in lymph nodes at least for 2 months. We don't know how long. And then work by Bruce Patterson at Incell DX suggesting the spike protein may be in the body for more than a year. This is way too long. This means shots every 6 months. There's progressive accumulation of foreign genetic material and then the lethal spike protein in vital tissues. So people at 3, 4, or 5 shots, invariably they're accumulating this toxic substance in the body. And invariably it's going to lead to disease. People aren't going to feel right. And right now, we just focus on the things the FDA agrees to. That is heart damage, blood clots, and neurologic damage. That's bad enough as it is. If it turns out that these are oncogenic, in fact, cancer risks go up, I think actually all bets are off now. I'd be extremely worried if indeed cancer risk is proven. Right now, it's not proven. Now, I'm not against vaccines. Other doctors aren't either. If they would have been narrowly applied in our seniors with a safe mechanism of action, let's say a nasal mist vaccine, we could have gone along with that for nursing home patients, but not widespread forced mass vaccination down to 6 months old. That's a terrible population idea, and the damages are now significant. America has a huge regret over the vaccine program.
Do you know who Dr. Michael Yeadon is, correct?
Yes.
Okay, this is not some nutball with a tinfoil hat. This is a guy that worked for Pfizer for 20 years. And he says, listen, this was an attack by the government. If you take a look at governments, plural, if you take a look and you just put it all into, this was a depopulation event, there you have it with no excess. He says it's a depopulation event that millions are going to die from this. What say you?
Whether it's intentional or it's just a byproduct of what's happening, clearly large segments of the population are now dying with vaccines. Every life insurance company is off the Richter scale in terms of new claims, largely younger employed people. Sadly, there's an analysis by McLachlan and colleagues from Queens, from VAERS, showing that the majority of people that are dying with the vaccines are our seniors. And so these deaths are actually not well captured or categorized, because they're towards the end of their life anyway. We know that Ralph Barrick at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, is probably the most knowledgeable people on coronaviruses. And I think it's suspicious that he has been so silent through all this. He published a paper in 1992 showing how coronaviruses can injure the heart. And then in 2015, he published with Vineet Menachery 2 papers, one in Nature and Medicine and the other ones in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Harvard, a Swiss institute, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And that papers, the title of the paper was Emergence of SARS-CoV-2 into Human Populations. In 2015, they were working on the threat, the virus, and they were working on an answer, which were monoclonal antibodies and a killed vaccine in those papers. And in Peter Bregan's book, COVID-19 and the Global Predators, he outlines 36 pandemic preparedness planning events since 2012, 25 of which have written documents, 6 of which are filmed. I can tell you this, my analysis of this is a U.S. government operation. The research was done in the biosecurity lab in Wuhan, China, but something went terribly wrong. And now in the cover-up in the vaccine program, it's making things worse.
Are millions going to die from this? I mean, that's what people are saying, that this is millions are going to die, or at least their lives be wrecked for the rest of their lives. But are you suspecting that millions are going to die from the knock-on effects, the accelerated cancers, the blood clotting, the myocarditis? One guy was recorded on his 5-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid got a shot, and he got myocarditis, which means he's got what? You're the heart doctor. They say it's 5 years to live. Are a lot of people going to die from this?
Boy, you know, I really, I'm loath to try to, make such a dire prediction. I'll just say we've lost 1 million Americans. 250,000 died of COVID before the vaccines. They either died of COVID or they died with COVID. Now, since the vaccines, we've had 750,000 Americans die with COVID, many of whom took the vaccines. Now we have the additional deaths with the vaccines. Remember, I told you VAERS has 14,000 Americans they've certified died within a day or two of taking the vaccine. Pantazocdos and Seligman from Columbia estimate through last December, 178 million Americans may have died with the vaccines. And it's grossly underreported. World Council for Health points out 4 agencies, including VAERS, 40,000 certified deaths, and that may be an underreporting. It may be an underreporting of 100 to 1. It's a vast number right now, and no governments are doing investigations. The United States should have a full stop on this. You know, Pfizer knew about 1,223 deaths within 90 days of release of their product. Families were calling Pfizer saying Americans were dying after they received Pfizer. Pfizer, logged all these deaths, but they didn't pull the product off the market. And the FDA lawyer wanted to block that dossier to America for 55 years. So the FDA is involved in a cover-up with Pfizer, almost certainly with Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. It's an ongoing biological catastrophe.
They came up with these bizarre terms, sudden adult death syndrome. And rebound COVID. And they don't want to talk about antibody-dependent enhancement that the late, great Luc Montagnier talked about. He won a Nobel Prize for groundbreaking work on HIV. When you have all these, let's say 58% of people are going to have 3 shots. This is according to a recent story on Breitbart, as I said earlier. Aren't you setting yourself up for antibody-dependent? Aren't you setting yourself up to get more what you vaxxed for? COVID?
It's true. There are emerging sources of data that the more shots that are taken, the immune system is misdirected against obsolete, basically, version of the spike protein. At least the original vaccines did. And a paper by Wheatley and colleagues that appeared in 2021, the term is called immune imprinting, meaning the immune system is misdirected against the wrong target. So when one does get infected with COVID, they actually have a worse syndrome. That happened to President Biden, NIAID Director Anthony Fauci, the president of Pfizer, CEO of Pfizer, Bourla. There's many public citizens. The more vaccines they take, the worse they have with COVID. And now in most heavily vaccinated countries, the majority in the hospital and dying with COVID have been fully or maximally vaccinated. So it's clearly backfiring.
Let's just future cast here. So I know, I was out at a hardware store, saw a friend of mine who's got himself a part-time job at the hardware store, and I asked him, did they make you get vaccinated? Oh, I got everything I could. And I just, I mean, I told everybody not to take it, period. It was experimental. From the very beginning, and I got kicked off of YouTube. I don't know if you know my thing. I told everybody not to take it. I said, wait, it's experimental. We'll know more now. What we know is it's a disaster, like you just said. So aren't we setting ourselves up for one, hell of a awful winter with COVID?
You know, COVID is on the way out. It looks like President Biden just announced that COVID is over with. We're in this after wave after the Omicron outbreak. Of note, we had a huge Omicron peak in December. Only the heavily vaccinated countries had an Omicron peak. Countries that didn't have much in the way of vaccination had no Omicron peak. So Omicron was clearly a product of mass vaccination, but we're getting this final wave out here, and the majority of people have already been through it. Paper by Kematali and colleagues shows that once you've already had the infection, there's a 97% protection against hospitalization and deaths. And so many
even for the vaxxed, though, even for the people who've been vaxxed.
People who've had the natural infection, whether they've had the vaccine or not, they're going to do okay. So what we're left with is just the vaccine injuries and damage itself. And I can tell you that we're going to have to be quite vigilant. The blood clots, the heart damage. I've never ordered so many cardiac MRIs, ultrasound tests for blood clots. People need to be hyper vigilant. They've taken a foreign genetic code in their body. It's produced the lethal Wuhan spike protein. It's in their brains. It's in their hearts. People can't feel good who have taken this into their body. They have to know they've taken an extraordinary risk.
What do you say to people? I had some woman waitress I know her, I've been going to a restaurant for a while, and she said, I just went to the cardiologist about my heart fluttering. I said, I always ask it, were you vaccinated? Yes, I've had 3 shots, and this happened a few months after my 3rd shot, and he says there's nothing wrong, and he doesn't think it's a vaccine, and says to me that he didn't know how to treat me. What's up with that? I hear this all the time. Either they laughed at, they say there's nothing wrong, it's in your head, you're nutty, it's certainly not the vaccine. What say you, Dr. McCullough? Are these people injured?
The majority of doctors took the vaccine. This is shocking. The majority of doctors, asking no questions, took the vaccine. Recent Texas A&M survey shows that only 10% of doctors are questioning the vaccine in terms of safety and efficacy. Well over 90% of them took the vaccine. So they're having psychologically a very hard time dealing with the fact that now their patients are getting sick with the vaccine, and they're quite honestly, frankly, denying vaccine injuries, I think, because of that psychological block. On top of that, doctors are doing things they've never done before. Let me give you an example. I'm a cardiologist, and I can tell you a patient with severe heart failure waiting for a heart transplant, we would never do anything that causes heart damage. Never, because that could just finish off the patient. Transplant cardiologists are giving this vaccine to patients.
Oh, God almighty.
And it's shocking. It's stunning. Now there's a report out, the first report, that organ transplants are not going well. Surprise, surprise, because of spike protein in the donor or recipient. In particular, on my Twitter feed is a report on corneal transplants going bad, and that's awful, because that ruins vision. These corneal transplants need to be taken well. And so this has really spooked the whole transplant community. They never should have gotten in the business of vaccinating either transplant candidates or transplant recipients or donors. It's been a total disaster. It's completely experimental, never been shown to be safe in that population. And there's no reason for doctors to take the risk. COVID-19 is very easily treatable in transplant patients.
The doctors, I mean, we have 58% of the population triple vaxxed, and then we have the doctors that you're saying 90% vaxxed. Aren't we setting ourselves up for a complete and total disaster of our own doctors having accelerated cancers, blood clots, all kinds of heart problems, being knocked out of the box here? Wow, the peak of people being sick who have been vaccinated 3 or more times. Are we looking at a medical catastrophe with our medical staff? That doesn't count the nurses.
Well, recall early on there was a few doctors who died early, some prominent doctors, Florida, Tennessee. Then we didn't hear much about it. Now there's reports out of Canada where they're up to 33 Canadian doctors, young Canadian doctors, who died after the 4th shot. And it may be that cumulative told.
Wow.
The question is, when will doctors wake up to this? How many more deaths need to occur? How many more blood clots, cases of heart damage before doctors realize that they themselves could be at risk for this? It's astonishing. It's almost as if the doctors are in some type of trance or what's called mass formation. They're not thinking correctly. They're simply not thinking correctly. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology advises that pregnant women take these vaccines. Despite COVID being very treatable in pregnant women, they have very good outcomes with COVID. And these are experimental genetic vaccines that the FDA says causes blood clots and heart damage. That's the last thing you'd want to see happen in a pregnant woman or in an unborn child. It's astonishing.
You
can't make this up. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology is advising that this be done.
Should we stop all the shots right now? I mean, it should have stopped months ago, a year ago. They should have stopped when this 900 deaths was released from Pfizer. Should have put we should have seen sparks flying and things stopping on the rails. Nope. We want to vaccinate 6-month-old babies. We want to vaccinate pregnant women, children. We want to vaccinate everybody. I mean, should this have stopped a long time ago, and should it stop now?
When I look back on it, January 22nd of 2020, we already had 182 deaths in VAERS. Pfizer worldwide was accumulating 1,223 deaths. We were over the line. Other vaccines are shut down at 5 deaths, 15, 25, no more than 50 deaths. So it should have been shut down, I would say, easily by February 1st. Any reasonable data safety monitoring board would have shut it down. But instead, the CDC and FDA were in charge of the program, and Americans had no protection on safety. Remember, the FDA is supposed to protect Americans. Instead, the FDA is giving out the shots and promoting the shots.
So wait, let me make sure I get this right. I'm sorry. This should have stopped February 1st of 2020?
No, February 1st of 2021.
Wow.
Right. So, sorry. So
should have stopped a year. I'm sorry.
December 10th of 2020. After about a month or so, they should have been shut down February 1st of 2021. Whoa. Based on the data.
I want to get this from you because you're, one of the renowned cardiologists, and you've probably seen this firsthand. These big long strings, these weird blood clots. Dr. Ryan Cole, who does epidemiologist, held some up on camera. Just want to triple source this. Are you seeing these big long blood clots in people?
We're seeing them clinically when patients are alive by ultrasound, and they're not going away. Now, keep in mind, when a body is deceased and it undergoes standard preservation, the blood clots come out in chunks and little crumbs. I know this. I've had a lot of experience in pathology, cardiac pathology. They never come out in whole rubbery strings. This is distinctly unusual. And analysis of this show that the spike protein is physically in the blood clots, and it's considered amyloidogenic. It actually folds and becomes like rubber, and these are not dissolving with standard blood thinners. So I'm very concerned about these patients with vaccine-induced blood clots. They can be lethal, and they're not responding to traditional treatment.
What do you have? Do you have to go into there was some 17-year-old kid that had a blood clot, 1.5 feet long, pulled out of his leg, and his football season's over, and it's lucky his life's not over. I mean, are you having to go in and pull out stuff like that?
I've had one case in my clinical practice of a woman about 5 months after Johnson & Johnson, where a blood clot had to be pulled out of her arm. Oh. Now, her predisposing factor, she had thoracic outlet obstruction syndrome. Actually, 2 patients in my practice. It's been published in the literature. That may have happened to female golfer Nelly Korda. She also had a blood clot in her arm. And again, the predisposing factor is muscles up here under the first rib. It was called thoracic outlet obstruction, but the vaccine tips the patient over into blood clotting. Now, the boy that you mentioned, the family quickly came out, and this is what families should do. They quickly came out and said that boy did not take the vaccine and did not have COVID. And that was very helpful. He had a congenitally interrupted inferior vena cava, so he had a congenital abnormality. But when these happen, and it's not related to the vaccine, the family members can and should come out and reassure America. We've had Deion Sanders, who is promoting the vaccines. He has blood clots shoot to his feet and have amputations. We had college football announcer, I'm blanking on his name right now. He's a wonderful college football announcer, used to play for Ohio State. He develops blood clots after taking so many shots, again, not putting it together. We just have public figure after public figure. You mentioned Justin Bieber with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. I can tell you Ramsay-Hunt syndrome in a young person, it's the vaccine until proven otherwise. And it's interesting, when it happens naturally, it goes away pretty quickly with corticosteroids. And I think it's notable in his case that it's not going away. It's really ruined his touring. And so, again, we just have notable public figure after public figure, and no one's putting this together. No one's expressing the appropriate outrage they should if it's the vaccine. And if it's not the vaccine, they're not expressing the appropriate statement that they didn't take the vaccine.
What about
they're just leaving it, uncertain for us to guess.
What about the spike protein shedding, which is a real thing according to the CDC with pregnant women? So couldn't this kid with this thing in his leg, as he was predisposed, couldn't he have been shed on by all of his classmates who have been jacked up with the boosters and clot shots? Couldn't he have gotten some of this spike protein from people? I know we're out there on a limb, but I mean, the shedding is real, and this is according to CDC literature with pregnant women.
Well, I think it's speculative. I still haven't seen convincing proof that shedding can cause a significant complication in the recipient. So I think that's conjecture, but I think we can leave the boy out of it. He had a congenital abnormality. But all of these cases, the announcer I mentioned was Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit had blood clotting, had at least 2 or 3 vaccines, but doesn't put it all together. Doesn't come out and say, listen, I've got a blood clot due to the vaccines. I mean, this is so frustrating. Deion Sanders doesn't say anything. Bruce Willis doesn't say anything. The family of Midran Lewis, CNN correspondent, Marvin Hagler, we can go on and on and on.
Wow.
All these public figures, the families don't come out and tell us either yes or no. Is there outrage or is there not? Everything's left to just this unexplained situation. The daughter of Illinois Congressman Sean Casten.
That's
what happened. Again, people should just either come out and say, yes, it was the vaccine, it's a giant mistake, and I lost my loved one, or no, it had nothing to do with the vaccine. Instead, they're leaving America and the world guessing.
There is a CDC paper, just to let you know, that Karen Kingston, a medical biotech analyst, came out and said they were worried about shedding for pregnant women who were not vaxxed, and if they were simply around people who were vaxxed, and they're worried about extemporaneous miscarriages and birth defects. So there is a paper on it, but I don't know if it relates to this kid. Just to let you know that. But I want to move on to the people, and I want to get to this because this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you, is this medical wellness company launches new integrated model to increase access to quality health care. And I've talked to Dr. Pierre Corey about this, and he says, he stunningly says they won't even A, admit to a vax injury, and B, there's people that have them, and they're treated like they're nuts. And so what about people who are having shortness of breath, heart fluttering, they've got blood clots, and they've had 2 shots and a booster, so they know they've been vaxxed up. Is there any place for these people to turn, and is this why you're starting your wellness company that you are, I think, the chief medical officer or chief science officer, right?
Right. So I've taken on the role of chief scientific officer for the wellness company on a part-time basis to advise the best I can. It was started by business e-commerce juggernaut Foster Colson out of Canada, very well capitalized. This is going to be a nationwide service. They're going to have doctors, pharmacies. Patients are not going to have their medications denied, wellness, education, coaching. It's really going to be a terrific service. Patients are frustrated. They've got a variety of problems. Remember the Zogby survey, representative survey of Americans. 15% of Americans who've taken the vaccine have some new medical problem, and the doctors are stonewalling patients on this. They're frustrated, and the medicines company is going to offer a nice solution. Now, there are independent doctors in practice that are doing the best they can. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, has a running list of doctors who will see patients. Frontline Critical Care Network, you mentioned Dr. Corey and Dr. Merrick doing a wonderful job, but we really do need a nationwide company that has the capital and the resources to make this happen.
Now, are you talking about doing telemed as well? The family says, "Hey, doc, listen, whether it's you or somebody else, but listen, I've got this shortness of breath. I've had my third booster or fourth, I've had heart palpitations. What do I need to take? What do I need to do?" I mean, Corey is developing treatments. One of his baseline drugs is, oddly enough, ivermectin, which the medical community has cut off. So, is this going to be telemed, where somebody can get to you, boom, get some kind of a relief?
Yeah, the wellness company will have telemedicine services. They just kicked off in the last few days, but ultimately they'll probably have face-to-face encounters. They'll utilize local laboratories and diagnostics. So, for instance, we're relying on a lot of ultrasound, CT, and then for the heart, cardiac MRI, and so it's going to be distributed. They have a very comprehensive network, but importantly, no patient will be denied. Patients right now are being denied treatments. They're very frustrated. Many have innovated, trying to come up with protocols, and we'll do the best we can in terms of observational research, and if we can get to it, randomized trials. But there's a great unmet need now. America is hurting after these vaccines.
Corey likes, he does multiple different things. I don't want to reduce his treatment down to one thing. He does multiple things, but he has told me on this program that his baseline drug is ivermectin because, as you know, your cardiologist, it is anti-inflammatory. That's important for the heart. It binds to the spike proteins and removes them from the body. What say you about ivermectin, which largely the pharmaceutical industry and the medical boards have cut off?
Ivermectin, which is an anti-parasitic agent, is first line in about 24 government guidelines for acute treatment of COVID-19. So it has the evidence base to be a base of treatment, both outpatient and inpatient. I do think at 0.6 milligrams per kilogram, it's the most dynamic drug we have, particularly in conjunction with prednisone, a corticosteroid. But I've used all the drugs in acute treatment, and I think it takes about 4 to 6 drugs to take a high-risk patient through the illness at home. In the post-COVID syndrome, Dr. Santini from Yale has innovated with ivermectin, but it's a prolonged course. It's over about 6 weeks or so. That still needs to be tested and proven. I tend to organize patients into certain syndromes, whether it's neurologic, cardiac, vascular, make a diagnosis, use the conventional treatments when I can, like blood thinners and others. And then I'm open to the idea of an empiric trial of ivermectin, particularly if there's fever and some constitutional symptoms that are lingering after the vaccine.
With the ivermectin, I mean, could there a lot of people that have taken 3 shots in a booster and aren't sick yet?
There could be, but I can tell you that in the absence of randomized trials, our government's not even recognizing these vaccine injuries. We've got to get treatment protocols in place. Everything right now is empiric, and we're just going to have to make our observations step by step. People take the vaccines, and the first thing they ask is, well, how can I get it out of my body? Or how can I limit my side effects? People have to understand the only way to stay healthy and safe is to not take these.
Have you taken the vaccine, doctor?
No, under no circumstances. Initially I was neutral on the vaccines as they came out of the trials, but I already had COVID early. So I was already in an excluded group. So I wasn't going to violate the FDA or the randomized trials. Remember, COVID-19 vaccines are only EUA approved for those who have not had COVID. And so, any overreach or ignoring these exclusion criteria is a regulatory misstep. We should never be vaccinating people who already had the illness.
Well, they were forcing people who had COVID and gotten over it, and they were still mandating you get these awful shots. I mean, what's up with that?
There's 3 papers that I cited early on, Mathias, Ra, and Kramer, that showed if you've already had COVID and then you take a vaccine that's not needed, all one does is cause side effects, including hospitalization and potentially death. It's a very dangerous proposition to already have the illness and then take an unneeded vaccine. And the military was forcing this on the recruits and schools and employers. and they're going to have to be called to justice for this. Even the FDA, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson agreed in the clinical trials, no one who's recovered from COVID should take a vaccine. That was in 2020. That's what they agreed to. We never should have violated that.
And that's not, we had Senator Ron Johnson saying there's 100 million Americans that have gotten, this is over a year ago, they've gotten COVID and gotten well, and yet they're pushing they're forcing this a mandate for federal employees and the New York City and all these different bizarre mandates to force this shot that we clearly now doesn't work. I mean, President Biden had 2 shots, 2 boosters, and COVID twice. So we can all agree it doesn't work for COVID, but it works great for myocarditis, accelerated cancers, blood clots, and autoimmune disease. Works great for that.
It's true. Again, the vaccine should have never been used in people who've already had COVID. No doctor was against the vaccine. I think if it would have been limited to susceptible nursing home patients under very careful observation, it could have been reasonable, maybe 2.7 million people. Having said that, it still probably would have been pulled off the market in a month for excess mortality, but at least there we could justify the effort. This idea of vaccinating people with the lethal Wuhan spike protein down to 6-month-old, 6-month-old babies had no contribution to this pandemic. The kids should have been left out of it. The country of Denmark was right. They basically said, listen, nobody under age 50 now. A lot of countries are pulling back. They've seen too much. They're calling it.
I think it's all swill. I'm sorry. I think it's swill. I don't think you'd put, there are reports that they put AIDS, HIV in this vaccine to trick the body. It's this nanolipid particle that Dr. Bakich said that if you took it, you shortened your life. I mean, I don't see anything good in this from all reporting I've done. I don't see anybody going, wow, I'm going to be cancer-free for the rest of my life. Ooh, I've got 20/10 vision now. No, I don't see anything, not a single thing I can see that was an advantage for taking these shots.
There's over 1,000 papers in the peer-reviewed literature. Not a single paper shows a benefit, a side benefit of these vaccines. The 100% of it's bad news. And the more we learn about it, it's bad news. There are some sequences of code in the vaccines that code for a glycoprotein. That's the same in HIV. And one of the very first vaccines used by the University of Queensland in Australia turned all the vaccine recipients HIV positive. Their test was HIV positive and they abandoned it. You can still see the press release on this. It's been heavily suppressed, but if you search the India Times, they've got it there. This has been a disaster. We now know in a paper by Nunez from Florida International that besides the HIV homology, there's about 24 human proteins of which the spike protein has homology. This is a bad finding because that means that there's going to be an autoimmune attack. And guess what some of the proteins are? Some of the proteins include the olfactory receptor, the receptor for the sense of smell. No wonder we have, after the respiratory infection with lots of spike protein in the sinuses, a loss of smell. Also includes some proteins in the heart. No wonder we have autoimmune myocarditis. This is a disaster to have the body be installed with the genetic code for the spike protein, which has so many deleterious aspects to it.
Last question. Is this going to, I have 2 more questions. Question number 1, this seems to me with all the reporting I've done, it's going to be awful. We're just getting started. Isn't this going to be much worse?
I personally don't think so. I think, I've been asked on national TV, where's the risk? And I'm following my patients very carefully. I think beyond a year, if nothing's happened, I'm not seeing the emergence of anything. And, a recent New York Times piece back in May said that 35% of Americans are not either haven't taken a vaccine or aren't going to take a booster. People are done with this. Recent data out of Israel, they dropped everything in Israel after they really heavily vaccinated the population. The percent of Israelis that are within 6 months of a vaccine that are fully compliant with these short-acting vaccines, it's only 2%. No one wants to take these vaccines or boosters. So the farther we get away from the shot, the more assured we can be that the damage is over with. So hopefully 2021 and 2022 will be the worst. Americans taking huge number of losses. injuries, disabilities, and hopefully 2023 will be better. But it all depends on whether or not people continue to take shots. These bivalent boosters, by the way, were approved based on failed studies in mice, 8 mice, and they still got COVID whether or not they took the booster. I mean, it is absolutely off the rails that the FDA or any regulatory agency would approve bivalent boosters, no human studies, and just failed animal studies.
And you say don't take any more shots. Your advice, don't take any more shots.
No more. There's no justification. We can treat patients through the illness.
And if you're right about it's 15%, wow, 15% of 200 million, let's say, took these shots, then that'd be 10% would be 20 million. So it'd be what, 30 million. Your new wellness enterprise is going to be awful busy with roughly 30 million people who have had these vaccines, likely will get very sick in some way, shape, or form. Is that what this wellness company is all about? Basically treating the vaccine injured, which will be in the millions?
Well, it's certainly going to focus, certainly acute COVID, long COVID, vaccine injured, and general wellness. Now, having said that, I've been following my patients carefully. I think a lot of these vaccine injury syndromes do resolve over time. So that number, hopefully, if people don't take any more, will go down. But 20 million Americans, that's about the same number who have active cancer right now.
Wow.
I mean, that's an astonishing number. A big number would be, let's say, a heart failure. There could be 20 or 30 million people with 6 million people with heart failure. That's a big number. 20 million people with cancer. We're talking about an astonishing number of people who don't feel right now after the vaccines. There's something, ringing in the ears, headaches, nuanced seizures. The neurological features are things that really, really bother people.
Well, we'll put the your link to your wellness company where they have a website in the after the interview. Dr. Peter McCullough, you're a wealth of information, basically an unbelievable medical whiz, and with all the studies and information you have to back up your thing. Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.com and letting us know about your new wellness company.
Thank you.